Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
This is your host, Alicia Debrell from Insight Media. Today's guest is Jay Hollingshed. He helps athletes, organizations, and individuals seeking psychological growth and development to maximize their performance. Jay is an effective leadership coach and owner of Jay Hollingshed LLC, where he offers a trio of coaching services and is a public speaker on the subject of personal development. Jay has his master's degree in healthcare administration and a bachelor degree in organizational development. Born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and now a native of Columbus, Ohio, Jay has a passion for helping others succeed and lives that through his work. So, without further ado, I want to welcome Jay Hollingshed to the show. Hi, Jay. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Alicia. How are you?
I'm good. So, can you tell me a little bit about your business experience and where you're from?
Sure. My journey started over 10 years ago when I started speaking and advocating on behalf of the United Way of the Mid-South. And there I engaged with Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies and local government agencies. And I got them to make a difference through the United Way. I was a volunteer speaker and trainer for the United Way of the Mid-South for 8 years. And I found that I had been bitten by this public speaking bug. Fast forward until just a few years ago, life put me on a journey where I in-depthly studied philosophy, psychology, and spirituality, and I still had that public speaking bug. So in 2015, just a couple of years ago, I started sharing my knowledge and marketing myself as a public speaker of personal development. My public speaking and social media postings were leading people to ask me for advice and guidance in their own personal situations. Somebody even asked what was my profession, and my daughter told them I was a life coach. And that prompted me to investigate the possibility of being a coach.
And what made you go into so much of it and become such a well-rounded coach?
Well, the 3 areas of coaching that I offer, they kind of came organically. I believed I had a pretty good foothold on the information about life that would help me in the life coaching area, and my bachelor's degree in organizational development. That, along with having built a successful business back home in Memphis, Tennessee, that would help me with the executive coaching area. The sports psychology coaching was totally unexpected. I didn't expect that at all. And since being a public speaker here in Columbus, Ohio, I've gotten more requests to speak life lessons to youth and young adult sports organizations. And I found myself teaching how these lessons of life, or the lessons in sports, can be carried over into the lessons to be used in adult life. And from there, I became a student of sports psychology to increase my value in that area.
I like it. That's really cool. And I like the fact that you work with children. So tell me a little bit about who you help and how you help them.
Okay. Well, my perfect prospect is the athlete, organizations, or individuals seeking psychological growth, and they want to develop and maximize their performance. I help them become aware of how much more productive they can be by adding a psychological approach to their quest. Once they are aware, I guide them through the process of their mental performance. And based on my client's end result, I introduce a line of questioning that guides them to identify with their current mental state. I then listen very closely and attentively as they identify with where they are. And just because a client has identified with where they are, that doesn't mean that they accept it. But once the athlete or the client accepts where they are, then we can begin the journey of removing obstacles and gaining clarity to improve their performance and development. So I work with them in a series of sessions as their mental coach by listening, suggesting methods to help them establish levels of accountability as they pursue their personal, career, and life goals. Basically, as they reach their desired end result.
So what do you think your role, as a sports psychology coach, what is your role?
My role as a sports psychology coach, I educate my athletic audience on how psychological skills affect athletic performance and development. I offer stress performance analysis for athletes and coaches. I offer mental performance curriculum development, and that would be athlete and program specific based on their specific needs. I educate in pre and post injury psychology. The pre-injury psychology would be basically for teams and organizations. And with that, I address the possibility of key player injuries, preparing the team to ride the waves of the situation and not mentally drown in the undercurrent of everything all the negative attention that will come from a key player injury. And for the post-injury, I educate them by maintaining and or elevating player mindset for positive recovery progression. I also conduct root cause analysis of performance anxiety for both players and coaches. And I offer performance enhancement through goal setting, motivation, and imagery.
Wow, you kind of cover it from A to Z. That's awesome. So why would a sports organization need a sports psychology coach? Why would they want to hire one?
A sports psychology coach specializes and teaches what a traditional coach normally doesn't. A sports psychology coach teaches players how to improve their mental game. When a player's mental game is improved, then their consistency and performance improves accordingly. Sport doesn't always consist of physical elements and muscles. Sport involves strategy and sharpness of mind. The mind is used in sport just as much as a muscle, but it's often overlooked by everyone because people never see it. So spectators only see the effects or results of the mind and what the mind gets the body to do to win. The thought process is never seen, only the action of the thought. And with that being said, sports psychology coaches like myself help athletes break through negative mindsets that may interfere with performance and strategy in competition. Sports psychology coaches help athletes get out of their mental slumps that affect performance when traditional coaches cannot.
So do you actually coach them as a group or do you coach them each individually?
I actually coach them both as a group and individually. Some sports are individual player sports where I'd only do individual coaching, and others are team-oriented. And there are group dynamics in place with a team that requires them to act, think, and move as one unit. So to grow and mentally become stronger as a unit, there are times when they would need to be coached as a unit or as one group. Now, some players within the unit or the group will have individual psychological needs that are keeping them from performing as well as the rest of the group. Some players may need to be coached individually to have the proper mindset when recovering from an injury. And some players, they have that, always got that special player that has that extra ambition and they want to excel at the top of their game. For them, individual coaching is necessary.
And so how long do you work with a team athlete or sports organization that you're working with? How long does the process take?
That varies. I work with a team or sports organization as long as they see a need for my services. However, the ideal situation would be to work with them for a full season. Now, throughout the season, the game changes, opponents change, injuries happen, challenges become greater. All of these instances, they require a change of mindset or an adjustment in a player's mental game. The shortest length of time I would want to work with a team is about 4 weeks. But there must be enough time to do a proper assessment of the team's current mindset as a group. And there has to be time to create a curriculum, apply the curriculum, and observe and make adjustments as needed. So it's longer than a 1 week thing. And to be honest, 1 month is really suitable for small teams and small organizations. Bigger teams bring bigger mindsets and greater team dynamics. They're the ones that are going to require more time. And the factors that decide how long I'd need to work with a team depends on the size of the team, it depends on the needs of the team, and the length of the season.
That makes sense. So what are maybe 2 things that a sports team should implement or an organization that should implement in their daily practice to achieve a better mindset on their team?
One thing I believe in, the first would be a guided meditation session as a team. And the second would be any type of group activity of their choice, and it has nothing to do with the sport, as long as they do it together.
So why would a sports organization or an athlete become your customer or hire you as their coach?
A sports team would hire me as their coach. They will become my customer because I understand both the business and athletic growth. They both are competitive in nature. And I have the ability as a sports psychology coach to coach them through a positive experience on both sides of the spectrum. I make it a point not to impress my clients, but to impact them from an educational standpoint, allowing them to learn from their mental experiences and receive added value throughout their process.
Can you maybe clear up a few myths or misconceptions that maybe people have about hiring a sports psychology coach?
One popular misconception is that an educational sports psychology coach and an educational sports psychology coach and a clinical sports psychology coach are one and the same. And actually they are not. There's a distinct difference. Now, a clinical sports psychologist has endured an extensive amount of training in sport and exercise sciences and is an actual medical doctor that's licensed by a governing state regulatory board to diagnose and treat emotional disorders. Now, my role as a certified sports psychology coach falls under the category of an educational sports psychology specialist or an educational sports psychologist. I've endured an extensive certification process in exercise and sport kinesiology and physical education to the extent of understanding the psychology of human body motion relating to exercise and sport. As a sports psychology coach, I do not diagnose, I don't treat patients. What I do is I explore and discover psychological barriers, and then I educate them and train them and consult them on psychological skills that affect their performance and development. Now, should I, as a certified sports psychology coach, suspect a possible emotional issue or an emotional disorder, then I will refer them to a clinical sports psychologist for a clinical evaluation.
You also work with athletes that are transitioning from playing on the field to becoming an entrepreneur. Is that after their career and they're moving forward? Can you explain to me a little bit about that?
I can explain about that. And yes, it is definitely true. That's where the executive coaching comes in. As an executive coach, along with using my degree in organizational development, I am definitely available to coach athletic executives through the process of fulfilling their business vision. I've been there. I know what it feels like. I've been there at the beginning of a business journey. It's scary. And I know what it feels like to step out on faith and take those bold steps. Back home in Memphis, I started a business and I didn't know exactly how or where all the employees were going to come from. But I knew I had to get that and get it started because when I signed the lease, that was it. I was on the wire. I was on the hook. But taking that step, that feeling that I had, I've been there. The entrepreneur athlete is going to have to deal with a tremendous mindset change when it comes to that because they have an entire livelihood or a career that is going to take a shift and take a change. They still have their fame and fortune and their status. However, they can't think like an athlete. They have to think along the lines of servicing customers. The executive coach in me can help them with that transition.
Okay, that makes sense. So why do you think it's important for an athlete to use a coach with this type of change? And if you do think it's important, why? Because, they have money. Can't they just go out and buy a business?
That is totally true. They have money, and they can go out and buy a business. That's no problem. But the thing is, buying a business is not like buying a car that you can wash and wax and put in the garage. Buying a business takes maintenance and it takes know-how. You have to understand the business, and you have to keep the business. It's totally different from keeping a car and putting it in a garage. And I believe it's important to help an athlete, for an athlete to use a coach in this type of scenario, because based on their desired results, I'll help them reach clarity that they're looking for in wanting to have the business and allowing them to move forward with confidence and communication with their business. Along with being a business owner, you're going to have to make certain decisions where you're going to delegate from one man and delegate your different duties from your managers and your managerial staff and your supervisors. Also, they have to deal with team building and deal with different personalities within that team. Not just that, as an entrepreneur, they have to deal with conflict resolution skills. Those things are not always present, especially with the transitioning athlete. Most athletes, when they deal with conflicts, they deal with it as a team or on the court or off the court. However, the coach steps in and says, all right, look, I'm separating you two, blah, blah, blah. You don't do this, you don't do that. And the conflict is always broken up. However, breaking up or resolving a conflict in a team is totally different from resolving a conflict in the business world, because there are business laws you have to deal with, especially when it comes down to human resources and things of that nature. Each state has different laws that you have to adhere to, and you can easily get sued. So there are lots of elements that executive coaching will come in and help this athlete in transitioning.
Okay. So what do you think most athletes underestimate about making the transition to the business world from the field?
Good question. Good question. I believe many athletes underestimate this type of transition, and it's due to their fame, their popularity, and their status. They are used to having everyone cater to them. They're used to having their name support them. And you know how most athletes, they walk into a restaurant, they don't have to pay for their food, or they go somewhere and they get almost everything free just because of who they are. They're used to being catered to. Now, in business, that same fame and fortune and popularity, it will work from a marketing standpoint. And that's probably the extent of it. It will help them market their business. That fame and popularity will have nothing to do with the quality of service they provide. That's what's going to keep their customer base, their quality of service. Many of them that make this transition, they still possess that mindset of being the superstar athlete when they should be possessing the mindset of their customer base. They're the ones that they're used to being waited on hand and foot, or they're not used to providing service and waiting on someone else. So that's the big transition for them. And that's hard for them to get a hold of, and that's what they underestimate. But I can help them with that and minimize that pressure of that transition.
Okay. So if you had one piece of advice for an athlete that's looking to become, maybe they're retiring or they're hurt or whatever, they're getting out of away from being an athlete to become an entrepreneur, what would that piece of advice be?
I would advise that athlete to start early in their process. Most athletes know, they can tell when their time is coming short or their time is winding up, or their body can tell them that they have to deal with injuries, things of that nature. They should start looking ahead because life still exists after professional sports. So they want to plan ahead for that life that will exist for them after professional sports. And when I say start or plan ahead, start early. That should be several years before. Do your research. Do your homework. Start asking the questions. And whatever area it is that they are inclined to go into, start seeking advice from someone who is in that area. And a good thing to do would be to take the off season. Most of them take the off season to relax, but if they know they're transitioning, take the off season to do some research. Find out what it is you need to do. Get you a team together. Start you a mastermind group, a group of masterminds that can work with you and work for you to help make that transition easier.
I have one more question. So if either maybe a sports organization or an athlete wanted to get a hold of you for your services, whether it's to help build a team or to help with, issues within the team, or maybe it's the, athlete that's transitioning to become an entrepreneur, how would they go about getting a hold of you?
Okay. Well, the first and the easiest way to get a hold of me is by phone number. And that phone number is 614-636-2744. That's 614-636-2744. I can also be found on multiple social media outlets: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. I can be messaged through either one of those, and you can find me on either one of those sites as Jay Hollingshed. Let me spell that for you. JayHOLLingshed. Jay Hollingshed. That would lead you to my website, which is jayHOLLingsHED.com. You can reach me there and inbox me through there, or Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube.
Great. Well, Jay, I want to tell you, first of all, I love what you do. I love how much passion you have for, helping athletes and sports organizations, and how much you've educated yourself in this field. This was a great interview.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. You've heard from Jay Hollingshed, and this is your host, Alicia Debrell, from Insight Media. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.